I'll join palms and repeat after me. I take refuge in the Buddha.
I take refuge in the Buddha.
I take refuge in the Dharma.
I take refuge in the Dharma.
I take refuge in the Sangha.
I take refuge in the Sangha.
Keeping the palms joined. Put palms down. All right, good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Good to see you all here. Thanks for showing up. Yeah. How many of you lack discipline? That's way too many of you folks. I'm going to do this again, and I want you all to look around the room. And for those of you who are lying and didn't raise your hand, you have an opportunity to participate now, even though today's class is not on morality. Let's try this again. How many of you lack discipline? Everybody look around. Keep your hands up. Is there anyone in here? You I trust. The rest of them, not so much. All right. This is going to be a really difficult practice for you without discipline. I don't want to go as far as to say, I'm not even going to say it. It's going to be a really difficult practice for you if you lack discipline. You will have a very difficult time. How many of you struggle and suffer on a day-to-day basis? To some extent. It's because you lack discipline. It's that simple. To me, the Buddhist teachings are so direct. Without discipline, you will suffer. Now, discipline isn't just in one or two areas of your life, it's everywhere. But specifically, the discipline that this practice starts with is training the mind. If you train the mind to be present, then this idea of craving, desire, dissatisfaction, things that you don't like how they are. Anyone not like how things are? All right, you don't have to show hands anymore. You know the answer to that, right? Because of our untrained mind, we wander into all these directions of things we don't like, people we don't like, places we don't like. And so we suffer. When we train the mind, we're training the mind in theory to be where? Present. So the only thing you should not like right about now, which is highly possible, is me talking to you. Maybe the person you're sitting next to, which is, probably unlikely. The temperature in here, So there are very few things right now, if your mind is actually present, to not like. Now, what if I ask you to just let your mind wander to things outside these walls? How long would it take you to find things that you don't like? All right, yeah, you all said not long is what I translated all of that at the same time to be. Already there, not long, 1 second. So disciplining and training the mind is incredibly important. What I find in my experience most often is that people who come into this practice, however, whether it's here at Dharma Bum Temple, whether it's, Buddhist temple down the street, wherever it is most people fail to have a dedicated, consistent, disciplined meditation practice. And we tend to use this time, and I'm glad you do, don't get me wrong, keep using it, but we tend to use this time more like a therapy session, more as a philosophical exploration, more of a journey into what's wrong with me and how can Buddhism fix it. That's how most people come to this practice. Not all, but many. And one way I know that is because half the people in this room are therapists and you send all of your clients here, right? Actually, most of the therapists stay away because of conflict of interest. But so I understand approaching this practice, meditation, Buddhism, as a kind of self-help tool because it will help yourself. But you still need to have discipline with training the mind. And so if you show up here day in and day out, week in and week out, year after year, which a lot of people do, but you leave here and you don't have a dedicated, focused meditation practice outside of here, you're just increasing the amount of time that you're going to struggle. You're increasing the amount of time that you won't do so well facing challenges and difficulties. So I don't have any simple solutions on how to help people develop a sense of discipline, other than the fact that it is possible. Who brushed their teeth today? I'm sure there's somebody forgot, but basically everybody in this room, minus the one or two that forgot, didn't brush their teeth. Those of us who still have it, who combed hair today? Every single day. We comb our hair, we brush our teeth. Your discipline is incredible. I'm actually quite impressed that all of you managed to brush your teeth and comb your hair every single day. There could be a fire in your house. You'd be like, I got to brush my teeth first, right? What this shows us is we have the ability to have a tremendous sense of discipline. But it's very selective. Very selective. And the hard part is the suffering is just consuming us every day. And so underneath all of this, cultivating discipline is motivation. What is your motivation to train the mind? Just shout out some things. Why would you want to stay present?
Peace.
Peace.
Suffering.
Say again.
Less suffering.
Less suffering.
Compassion.
Compassion.
Resilience.
Resilience.
Gratefulness.
Gratefulness.
Love.
Love.
Kindness.
Kindness.
Happiness.
Happiness. So no wrong answers here. But what's important for you all to explore is on your own to ask yourself, what is my motivation? Something motivated you to get here today, which is the first step. But when you walk out of here, what's going to motivate you when you leave? Or are you just going to, go back to your old ways and wait for your next Buddhist class to show up, right? Because that's what happens to so many people for years. They have the routine, they have their 1 or 2 classes a week that they go to, or their yoga thing once a week or twice a week or whatever it is. But very few people have a really disciplined, diligent daily practice of just sitting and breathing. So my motivation for all this is I know what it's like to suffer. It sucks. I know what it's like to sit with so many people who suffer. It sucks. And that motivates and inspires me more than I could ever even imagine. So my challenge to all of you is, as we start the meditation practice here in a moment or two, which your mind will then begin to wander, as it always does, because you're human and that's what our minds do. When it wanders, if you're going to wander to something for the next 4 hours while we sit in meditation, allow it to wander to, what's your motivation? Try not to let it wander. Try to come back to the breath. But after 2 seconds, when you lose yourself in thought, try to lose yourself in what your motivation is to practice. And then when you find yourself lost in thought about motivation to practice, release that thought and come back to the breath. And then 2 seconds later, when your mind wanders away from the breath and you're lost in thought, allow it to be lost in the thought of motivation. And then back to the breath. Pretty simple instructions. All right. So we'll start with a meditation practice. For those who are joining virtually, welcome. Good to see you all here. Feel free to say hello, introduce yourself, chime in with thoughts. A couple things to tell you for those who might be sitting for the first time. Nothing's going to happen to you. You're not going to float away, most likely. You won't have any mystical, magical experiences. The mind that races all day long is not going to shut off. Don't judge your practice. I mean, you don't ask yourself, is this working or not working? Are you doing it right or wrong? We're just going to sit, we're going to breathe. You'll hear sounds inside, sounds outside. This is life. Life is filled with chaos, and the practice of meditation is learning to get quiet and still within all of the chaos. So posture, you want to be comfortable. If you are on a cushion, often helps slide into the front third, pushing the stomach forward, allows the back to straighten. If you're on a bench or a chair, however you're seated, also just trying to sit up straight, relaxing the shoulders. Hands are on the knees or in the lap, whatever's comfortable. If you need to move during meditation, simply move. Movement doesn't make you a bad meditator. Just means your leg hurts or you have an itch, and then just return to stillness. I'll guide us as we begin, and we'll settle into a little bit of silence. And starting with the eyes closed, if comfortable, or slightly open. Mouth is open or closed. We'll start with taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. And eventually, settle into a natural rhythm of the breath. Noticing the mind as it wanders, jumping from thought to thought. Start with gently guiding the attention, focus, to the stomach or chest. Breathing in, feel them rise. Breathing out, they fall. Simply continue this practice, observing sensation of breath. As the mind wanders, lost in thought, recognize it. Release that thought. Return attention, focus to the breath. Breathing in, follow breath in. Breathing out, follow breath out. Letting go of expectations. Letting go of judgment from your practice. Just sitting. Breathing. Keeping the mind alert. Aware of each sound. Each thought. Each physical sensation. Yet concerned with nothing but sitting, breathing. And with the body still, rested, and the speech quiet, aware of all sounds. And the mind learning to settle. Know what it's like to just sit and breathe. Knowing with each breath, there's nothing else to do. Nowhere else to go. And no one else to be. Everything beautiful, exactly as it is. Sitting, breathing. And once again, taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. And as you slowly open the eyes, slowly beginning to move. And most important, with the practice of meditation, is to recognize how you feel now, immediately after. Compare this to how you typically feel throughout your day. Recognize the difference, if there is one. Ask yourselves how you'd prefer to feel every day for the rest of your life. And realize however you feel now, if it's quiet, calm, and still, or a busy mind, racing mind, whatever you're sitting with at this moment, has nothing to do with anything I said. It's nothing to do with how we sit and hold the hands or cross the legs. It's nothing to do with the sounds around us or anything else for that matter. It has everything to do with your own mind and your own mind's reaction to an external condition. This is what the Buddha called pratitya samuppada. It means dependent origination. This is the basis of the Buddha's awakening. The word Buddha simply means awakened. He was a human being, no different than any one of us, who began to understand why he suffered, why he got angry, sad, depressed, stressed, anxious. He began to understand the causal relationship of all phenomena. What that means, very simply, for all of us, regardless of where you come from or what you believe in or where you think you're going, your whole life is filled with things that happen. You react. More stuff happens, more reactions. That's it. That's what we get. This practice is simply learning what it's like to respond to something quietly, peacefully, still. Because for most of us, the way you responded to the last 20 minutes is quite different from how you respond to everything else that's happening throughout your day. So all we're working on is closing the gap, where the way you feel now is closer to how you feel always. Just as driven, motivated, productive, successful, whatever that means to you in your respective lives. But with a mind that's steady, clear, focused, distracted by nothing, disturbed by no one. It's not an easy practice, always. It's not always fun. Training for most things is not fun. Training ourselves and preparing ourselves to be happy and at peace and all the things, when I said, what's your motivation? All the things that people shared. To experience those things on a day-to-day basis is not easy. It requires diligence. It requires discipline. It requires effort. You probably wouldn't go a week, a month, a year without brushing your teeth. So why would we wait so long to take care of the most important thing in our lives, which is our mental, emotional health? That's really where it begins. Taking care of your heart and taking care of your mind is the foundation of this practice. Meditation is free. Buddhist practice, free. It's becoming aware of what you think, what you say, and what you do every moment of your life. And when we slow down long enough to pay attention to what we think and what we say and what we do, it's kind of scary a little bit. You ever finish your day and think and reflect and realize, I can't believe I did all that. I can't believe I thought all that. I can't believe I said all that. And not in a way where you're judging and critiquing yourself, but just kind of, taking an inventory and exploring, like, wow, is my mind really that screwed up? Yeah. Mine is. I don't know about yours, but I spend half my day thinking like, wow, am I really thinking this? After 20 years, this is the best you got? Yeah, it is. That's it. But it requires an honest reflection. That's where it starts. And most of us, many of us, all of us, some of us, either avoid that honest reflection because we're scared of it. Yeah. So, Buddhist teachings, there's a lot around morality, honesty, moral, ethical behavior. And I think that one piece that, at least in my kind of exploration of Buddhism, that often gets overlooked or maybe not shared as much, I don't really know why. Maybe it's because it doesn't seem as, well, I don't know. But what I'm getting at is I think that there's very often this practice of being of honesty and morality about yourself that I think is overlooked. And so often the practice will talk about, being honest with others and not lying to others and, all those types of things. But that also includes ourselves. And can we honestly look at our thoughts, words, and deeds, our behaviors, our actions in an honest way without a critical, judgmental, self-hatred way? And maybe that's one of the reasons people don't want to look at what they actually think and say and do, because when they stop to realize it, they're like, I don't want to be that person. So I'll just pretend it's not there. I'll just sweep it under the rug and, go help someone, which is good to start. So, yeah. If you have somebody to call you out on all your crap, that's phenomenal. If you don't, then, start calling yourself out. So with that, I'll pause. Open up to questions, meditation, Buddhist practice, anything that's on your mind. And again, for those joining virtually, welcome. Thanks for being here. There's a chat box on the screen. Feel free to chime in, say hello, any thoughts or questions there, and I'll do my best to respond. So we'll use the rest of our brief time this morning for questions.
So motivation is so interesting. This week I've been thinking about something that you triggered in me about expectation and looking at expectation versus setting an intention. So what I've done in my life with certain things that I do every day, I was setting an intention, but it was kind of paired with just do it.
Mm-hmm.
And after, like, every single day, every morning I take a walk, every morning I go to yoga.
Mm-hmm.
Not there yet with meditation, but I'm working on it. So after a while, just the habit just takes over, and it's not a thing.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't have to be a struggle.
Right. Yeah, and when something becomes habitual, not always, but very often, the expectation falls away. If it's a short-term thing, if we go to the gym for 3 weeks, we're like, after 3 weeks, have I lost any weight yet? Right? But when it's something that you just do every day, right? I mean, you probably didn't brush your teeth today and think like, have they fallen out yet? You just do it. Again, going back to that just do it kind of example. And I think that, and I'm glad you brought that up, because often it can be overlooked, or maybe not. Maybe when I talk about expectation, I don't say it that clearly, as far as intentions are important. Setting intentions are important with everything in life, with practice. But can we set the intention, which is really what I'm hearing you say, without expecting something on, the back end or in return? And I think that's a really beautiful practice. Yeah, thanks.
I struggle to get my second meditation in. I'm pretty good about the first one because it has become habit.
Yeah.
And I heard a talk from Joseph Campbell that was really helpful. And his advice was kind of like what our other friend was saying. Just get in the position of it.
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't have to put the whole, I'm going to spend this time, put
Right.
a heavy thing on it. It's just, and then when I find that I'm in there, I may as well.
Right. Yeah.
It takes to work.
Yeah.
My mind a little bit.
For sure. I mean, if we sit down in front of the couch and there's the TV, we're like, well, I'm already here. Might as well turn it on. Yeah, same thing. And there's which actually, this thought came up earlier, I didn't share it, but one example I always share that I really love, Shinder Suzuki, who built San Francisco Zen Center, in his book, Crooked Cucumber, this is just shared. It's about his life and creating the Zen Center. But one of the things that's shared is that when he was a novice monk at 12 years old, and this is in Japan, and the board would hit at 3:30 in the morning to wake up, he developed a practice where, and this in Dogen's teaching, he calls it beyond thinking, but he developed a practice where once the board hit at 3:30 in the morning, he's 12, forget the age for a minute because we would be in the same place. Once the board hits at 3:30 in the morning, if you start thinking, what is the likelihood that you're going to have any thoughts that include actually getting up and out of bed at 3:30 in the morning? It's not happening. So once that first thought starts, that sends you in a direction that you don't want to go in, that's difficult because then it snowballs. But if that board hits and you just get up and you don't think, you have a fighting chance. So your example of, okay, this is the second time a day I'm going to sit down, and maybe it's 6:30, whatever time it is in the evening, or 8 o'clock, whatever time you choose. And if you have an alarm, do you use an alarm for that or no? So one thing you could do is like, okay, if it's 6:30, set your alarm at 6:30. There's my 6:30 evening meditation. And as soon as it hits, don't think about it. Because as soon as you start thinking about it, there's a million reasons that we can come up with. Oh, I got to eat. I'm waiting for a phone call. I have to write this email. There's the TV. My couch is so comfortable. There's a million thoughts that we go into about why we would stop ourselves from doing things that we know are super important for us. So I love the example of just don't think. Set the intention and don't think. And that's where that intention setting, if the intentions are healthy, then we're okay. At times, I'm sure none of you, but we may often have intentions that might not be so healthy. And then that's a whole nother topic. So, yeah, thanks, Amy. Yeah, in the back.
Sorry to change the mood a little bit, but we're going to a service for a friend's funeral this afternoon. And I know that, the Buddha spoke about impermanence, but how do you kind of reconcile that when it comes to dealing with grief or loss of a loved one?
What was that last part you just said?
How do you reconcile impermanence with the loss of someone close to you?
Did you say don't grieve the loss of a loved one?
No.
Okay, that's what I thought I heard you say. I wanted to clarify. Gabriel, is that you?
Yeah.
Hey, you want to know how I know it's you? This is really kind of funny. So your voice and your Facebook post.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because there's a glare. So anyone past row 3, I can't even see you. There's just a glare. But I knew you were going to be in San Diego, and I recognize your voice. So welcome back. It's good to see you. Sorry it's under these circumstances. Just to share for those virtually maybe didn't hear it, you're here for a funeral, and the Buddha teaches about impermanence, but kind of what is the thoughts or practice around impermanence, grieving, loss, things like that, yeah?
Yeah.
So when we lose, and the reason I kind of wanted to clarify, make sure I heard what you said, often, which isn't what you said, but there's this idea that because the Buddha taught impermanence, and because we know, or eventually hopefully know, that everything is impermanent, meaning all conditioned phenomena come together for a period of time and then cease to exist. Every person, place, and thing in your life right now at some point will be gone, right? Everything and everyone. That's often a very harsh reality for us to face. I'm just giving a little back intro on this for those who are not familiar with the teaching of impermanence, but that's the reality. The Buddha said, we get 4 things. We get birth, we get aging, not even necessarily old age. We're lucky if we get old age, right? We get birth, we get aging, we get sickness, and we get death. We cannot escape it. So impermanence is surrounding us always. And our ability to embrace it and accept it and be with it is difficult. And often some people may think that impermanence means that when people die, we might just say, well, hey, it happens. But no, it hurts. And we feel that pain. We feel that loss. We feel that brokenness inside us, especially if it's loved ones, family, friends, people like that. And so I think what this does is it creates opportunities for a couple things. One, to recognize your human existence, and that when we lose loved ones, we feel that pain. And that's a beautiful thing, because that means that there was something or someone special to us. And we don't all always have many people that are that special in our lives to where it really hurts when we lose them. So that pain is a beautiful reflection on your love and care for somebody. Now, the other thing that occurs is an opportunity to really be grateful that that individual had opportunity to be alive and touch your life and touch the lives of others. And the hard part, as I talked about at the beginning today, a lot of people come to Buddhism or any sort of spiritual religious practice kind of for answers and how to solve or fix problems or things in day-to-day life. And for me, unfortunately, the thing around Buddhist teachings and death is Buddhist teachings doesn't make death any easier. It just makes it almost more real. It's like, yes, this is what happens. There's no answer to that. There's no solving it. There's no whys. Like, why did this happen? I mean, obviously, from a medical health perspective or, whatever the condition is, there's reasons we know very often why somebody died. But I'm talking about bigger than that. There's just the reality of loss. And Thich Nhat Hanh's teachings, and I'll find one or a book and I'll send it to you, are really good on the exploring death in our lives from a Buddhist lens. But a lot of what he talks about is that people live where, ultimately? In your heads and heart. They live in our head and they live in our heart. So when we lose people physically, we can't hug them anymore. We're not going to see them smile or laugh or cry or go through highs and lows, or we can't physically see those things anymore. But we have a lifetime, or whatever the experience was, of memories in our hearts and in our minds, and we reflect on those when we need to, and we cry as often as we need to. I wish Buddhism gave answers, or I wish anything really gave answers as to why. But with birth comes death. And can we find gratitude and appreciation in the middle there? So I don't know if that's helpful at all. Yeah. Buddha, there's a metaphor. Even if I tell it wrong, I think I can tell it well enough to where it'll make sense, right? So imagine you've got like a piece of wood, like a 2x4, floating in the ocean. Like, I don't know, pick an ocean. Oceans are pretty big. And you've got a 2x4. And there's a turtle in the same ocean. And once every 100 years, that turtle pops their head up. The chances of getting a human life are as rare as that turtle's head going through the opening in the wood. That's how rare it is, according to Buddhist teachings, to have a human life. So for anyone to have been blessed with a human life, it's really special. And then imagine, then we get to like interact with each other, which I know some would rather not do at times. I think I saw the deafening stare on your faces as I said that. But it really is super rare and special. I mean, think of the, endless time and endless space and endless conditions. And yet here we are on a Saturday morning sitting here in this crazy old space. Like, the odds of that happening are actually 100%, but super rare. So, doesn't make it easier, the loss, ever. But if we know that this life is precious and we all still have it sitting here today, at this very moment, as far as I can see, all of us here we're breathing, we're alive. We have opportunities to not waste, this life that we have. So, other thoughts, questions? Oh, interesting. So there's a question here from Jill, and I apologize. And you could maybe even chime in here. I'm not sure if your question came in before or after everything I just said. But the question is, hi, I'm Jill. My mom is very sick and the doctors aren't sure about a diagnosis or treatment. In very uncertain times like this, my years of mindfulness practice go out the window. Any advice? And, again, I mean, first and foremost, obviously, Jill, sorry for your challenges, your mom and the condition you're going through. I know that all too intimately, all too well. But very similar to what I was just talking about is that, and even like you said, your mindfulness practices, Buddhism, mindfulness, things like that, they don't solve things, they don't fix things. And I think what you've learned, the way you said this, your years of mindfulness practice. So if you've been at this for years, you've learned a few things. And I think instead of, this is always easier if somebody's in person and I can see their expressions, but I'll take a chance here. Instead of kind of just saying your mindfulness practice goes out the window, it doesn't, and it doesn't have to. The practice is to be mindful with your mother and face the reality and the truth. And the reality and the truth is that your mom is very sick and the doctors are not sure about a diagnosis or a treatment. That's the truth. The avoidance of that truth, the denial of that truth, the inability to embrace and accept that truth is where the pain comes in. The mindfulness practice allows you to actually just be physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, in any way with your mom. Because regardless of what you may want, or your mom may want, or what others might want, it's all out of our control. So I would encourage you to not give up on thinking that your mindfulness practices can help, because they can. The practice is to be with your mom in any way you can, just as if it was before there was a diagnosis. Not easy to do. But for all of us in this room, and especially in situations like this, we don't know how much time anyone has, right? So it's an opportunity to really just hyper focus on recognizing what's important and coming back to the practice that you probably learned. And again, I don't know you, and I don't know the practice that you've learned, but bearing witness, as is often expressed in the Zen world, being present, is a beautiful practice. It's not always pleasant. It's not always fun. It's not always easy, but you have an opportunity to practice. So, yeah. So hopefully that's helpful to some extent. Other thoughts, questions? We'll do one more before we wrap up. Yeah.
What comes to mind with this topic right now? I'm not sure so much about this exact story. There's a story about Buddha inviting Mara to tea, kind of facing your own fear, your own grief, your own pain.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of the path is through the pain, not avoiding.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And for those who aren't familiar with the reference, what was shared was the story that comes to mind for you is the expression of inviting Mara to tea, and that the path is through the pain and through the grief, not avoiding it. Mara, in the story of the Buddha, is the Buddha's mind, Siddhartha's mind. And so for 21 days prior to what they call the awakening, where they say he awakens to the true nature of suffering, he was sitting in jhana in meditation. And he was challenged by Mara. And again, Mara is just his mind. But in the story, you know, if you put it in a colorful book or told it in a story, it's much more fun this way. And so Mara did all kinds of things to challenge him. And Mara began to rain hail and thunderstorm down on him. And he just sat there in meditation, not moving. And a king cobra, it's called a naga. If you ever see a Buddha statue with the 7-headed cobra over him, coiled up underneath him to give him a seat off the ground so he was dry. And then the 7 heads covered him to protect him. I don't know about you, but if a 7-headed cobra came at me, not sure how well I'd do just sitting there, right? But, you know, not the Buddha. So this was him overcoming and sitting with and working through that fear, right? Another one is Mara began to shoot arrows at him. And instead of, you know, trying to dodge arrows like Matrix style, he just simply put up his hand. And the arrows turned to lotus petals and fell to the ground. So again, looking at trying to control what's coming at us, this constant state of fear that we live in, worry. And so he sat with that and it shifted. Alex, many of you or some of you maybe have heard Alex tell the story of Siddhartha, which is really beautiful, but he's a much better storyteller than I am. But I love when he tells this part of the story with with Mara. And the next thing he did was Mara had many beautiful daughters. And he thought, well, I'll surely be able to tempt Siddhartha with lust, with craving and desire. And so Mara began to dance his beautiful daughters in front of Siddhartha. Didn't even move. Nothing. They turned to stone. Right? So he had shown that he had overcome his craving, his desire. And the last thing Mara does is says, who bears witness to you defeating me? Like, nobody can defeat me. And he goes from jhana, meditation, mudra, and again, another common statue, and he simply touches the earth to show the earth was his witness. He didn't like jump up and call names. Ha ha, I beat you. He just simply touched the earth. And the story is the earth trembled and shook and Mara went away. And he'd overcome all his fears, all his doubts, all his worries, all his craving, all his desires. And they called him the Buddha, the awakened one. So most of us with those metaphors, whether they're metaphors or realities, we run from or run towards what's coming at us. But can we, coming back to the beginning of my talk today, have the discipline to simply touch the earth and be still with it? So, yeah. So we'll close on that. We'll join palms. May the benefit of this practice be shared with all beings in all directions. May all be at peace and free from suffering. May all this merit gained be transferred to those who need it most. So thank you all for being here. A few quick announcements before you head out. And also to the virtual folks, great to see you all here, and welcome to those who shared here for the first time, or back after a long time. So it's nice to have you here virtually with us. My name is Jeff. I'm a Dharma bum. We opened this temple almost 16 years ago to introduce Buddhist practice to those who show up. Those of us who lead, we're not monks, we're not nuns, we're not gurus, we're not masters, we're not teachers, we're not looking for students. We're just practitioners. We do our best to take our understanding of Buddhist teachings and put it into terms that hopefully make sense to those who show up. Just about every night we have different practices going on, different unenlightened folks leading from their own Buddhist perspective and lens or school or practice. I do want to point out one thing. We just started last night. So beautiful. We started a new recovery. For those who don't know, we have a pretty large recovery sangha here. So anyone battling addiction, drugs, alcohol, whatever it might be. We've had that for about 12 years. And we started last night our new recovery Dharma program. Always fun when you start a new program, always beautiful and like heartwarming just to like start something new. Also cool to bring something back here on Friday nights, which we hadn't had for years. So we had probably, again, the numbers don't matter, but I don't care if there's one person or 1,000 people here, but it was really cool to see like 20 people show up on a Friday night, sitting here, coming together in community and sharing. So it's a new Friday night group, which is really beautiful, and endless gratitude to everybody who's made that possible. And couple things out of the ordinary. New Year's, we have coming up our 17th annual, believe it or not, I cannot believe it's been that long, 17th annual New Year's Eve celebration. So if you've never done a New Year's silent and sober, this is an opportunity to get both of them done out of the way, and I promise you'll still survive. So the whole night is not silent. We meet around 7 o'clock. We do a vegetarian potluck. I think we're still going to do potluck style. At least that's what we keep saying. 9 o'clock, we'll do a kind of history and vision of the Dharma Bum Temple up here, complete with a full slideshow of 17 years of history. And about 11:30, we pile in here and we do about a 20-minute silent meditation going into midnight. So some people come at 7 and they're home and in bed by 9 o'clock. Some people come at 9 and stay. Some people just come at 11:30 to sit. So you're welcome to come at any point throughout the evening, or come early and stay. Doesn't matter. But especially the meditation part is really special. Again, just to kind of start a new year silently is something that's typically different for most people. It was fun when we were downtown because you heard the gas lamp like explode. The first couple years we did it here, I'd be sitting there, I'm like, is it midnight yet? Because everyone here is asleep by midnight. But the gas lamp was a little bit of a different story. So other than that, thanks for being here. I'm on shop duty, so I'm going to jump downstairs real quick, but appreciate you all being here. I wish you well, and thank you.
Thank you.